Eatonville. It's near Orlando. It's sort of in the center.
People are asking, could you repeat questions if they can?
Okay, fine. I'll do that from now on. I'll try anyway. Yes.
Is her grave marked now?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, now that it's marked, they're even talking about moving it, which I think is really just so typical. You know, I mean, it's just so typical. God help us. Now they want to put her. They've named a big building in Florida after her, and they want to make a little park. You know, and they want to have a little rope around it all and have. So I think that she'll probably rise up and. As a matter of fact, you know, this woman who went with me on this expedition, Charlotte, kept probing into certain areas of Zora's life, and one night Zora appeared at the foot of her bed and told her to cease and desist. Yeah.
I've heard so many different versions about the love affair that supposedly inspired Their Eyes Were Watching God. I wondered if you knew anything specific.
I don't think we'll ever know, you know, who, you know how love with different people can inspire different things, but also sometimes it comes out in the same work, you know. I mean, you can have 3 lovers and somehow they all come together in this one great person in the book, or this one rotten person, as the case may be. Zora was lucky.
There was supposed to be a prototype for tea cake.
I know, yeah. Well, she had a younger husband, the same husband who accused her when he was trying to get a divorce from her of voodooing him. But one day when I was sitting in my office at Ms. Magazine in New York, my phone rang and they said there's someone in the waiting room to see you, and I popped out there, and it was the man that I think inspired tea cake. And he's the same man who is discussed in this book. Zora was in love with a West Indian who unfortunately had all the problems that West Indian men sometimes have of wanting to control and not wanting her to do her work. And she loved him very deeply, but he could never understand that she really did love him and she loved her work. He kept saying, why don't you marry me and stay at home and just look pretty until I get there, you know? And if you read anything of Zora's, you understand that she's not about it to sit at home and worry about looking pretty until you get there. She was just not that way. Yes, back here in the back.
I just wanted to know, I admire you for your knowledge and your wonderful speaking voice.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm just curious, how did you first become interested in Zora? How did you find out about it?
Well, that too is very hard to. Oh, she's asking how I became interested in Zora, and you know, over the past few years, I have written various introductions to books about Zora and written things about her, and each time I try to pinpoint the exact moment, and each time it's different. And I think it's so much like her own personality. I mean, that the way that, however you look at her, she looks different. I cannot really remember. I think, for instance, that maybe it was when someone first told me about Their Eyes Were Watching God. You know, maybe it was when I happened to pull out a book of short stories that was edited by Langston Hughes before he died. And much to my surprise, this is 67, 77, 15 years later, I noticed that there was a story by Zora in the same book where I had a story, but I don't remember reading it. And that's also interesting because I think I didn't read it because at that time I had been programmed to read the men and not the women. So I don't know, I mean, then I audited a class that Margaret Walker taught, and I noticed that she gave very short shrift to the women, and the course was really about men, and I think that must have annoyed me, So there are all these things, and then I started reading her, and once you read her, I really don't think you can ever. I mean, you may hate some of the things she says, many people are really down on her even today, but it seems to me that she is really interesting, and that's something. There are very few people who are really deeply interesting, you know? I mean, in just this way. I mean, all people are interesting, as Lorraine Hansberry points out, but there's something about her that is just fascinating. All the things that she did, yeah. You.
Think about all the black women writers that, you know, contemporary or since Zora Hurston and yourself. Has what she done influenced you as a writer? How you use the voice? Because I know you have a really fine way of making people talk like they would have thought.
Yeah, well, one of the crimes, in a way, of living in a society where your people are not accessible to you is that you don't have their influences enough. And so that I don't think I read her at all. I know I didn't read her at all until I was well out of college, and which means that when I was writing my first novel, I was unaware of her work, and I had to go from scratch, which wasn't bad in a way, too, because, you know. But I think now, yes, I think she influences all of us because we see, not just in her writing, but in her life, because she is such a fine contrast to women like Jessie Fawcett or Nella Larson, you know, or any of the other black women writers who were really just totally bourgeois. You know, I mean, they had wonderful things going for them, but they were also very confused about their racial identity, for instance, or, you know, Jessie Fawcett wrote all those novels in which the people had to have their veins show through their skins, you know. And to see someone finally just come right out with a full appreciation of herself, you know, this early, it's just wonderful. Yeah. Yes.